Every year they drop a little water.
Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Becky, would you do the roll?
Jim Sheeline. Jim Sheeline. Arlen Arlen McLean. Tom Kitson.
Present.
Lara Mamini.
Just dropped off.
Okay. Doug Farster.
Here.
Rick Humphrey.
Here.
Tim Bivens.
Here. All upset because we're sharing a mic up here. I was looking around for my mic. Where's my mic? All right. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes. Moved by Bivens, seconded by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. We've got. All right. Meeting attendees. Charlie's not there. Marilyn, you got anything for us? Nancy, we've got you next. Anything else pertinent besides your report? Mike Copine?
Oh, sir. Thank you.
Amy Johnson? Paul? Okay. Anybody up on the board? Stacy, you have anything for us? Oh, that's Sam. Oh, Stacy. Yeah, sorry, Sam. Sam's keeping an eye on us. All right, so we will be down to Paula, do you mind if Nancy goes first? She's got a time certain. Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
Nancy, you're up with insurance report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The minutes of the first two insurance meetings are on the onboard. So if you've read them, I'm gonna go through them for a couple of points. We've met twice. The insurance committee was formed to review, and I understand it's every 5 years that the committee reviews the insurance plan for the employees of Lee County. So we've met twice with our consultant, our health insurance consultant, Brad Johnson, and his associate Tally. We met on March 14th, and the first meeting, Brad gave us an overview of the project and also an analysis of the Lee County health benefits compared to other employers, which was quite interesting. He did compare us to municipal employers as well as a couple of private entity groups. We talked about the deductibles, the office copay, the prescription copay, et cetera, et cetera. It was found that our benefit package was competitive and favorable when compared to other municipalities. So that was good. Everybody was happy with that. So that was the end of that meeting. He did a slide presentation, which I think Wendy has available if anyone wants to see it, right, Wendy?
Correct.
Okay. He seems to be really thorough in what he does, and I've been impressed by him, and I think Wendy has too as well. We met for the second time on May 16th, and that particular meeting was to review the cost drivers. So what drives the cost of insurance? And it was noted that it was age, of course, gender, tenure on the health plan, as well as the locations. And then he also went through our actual claim usage and was discovered that Lee County has the highest medical RX loss ratio in the QCIP pool at this time. The target loss ratio is 99%. So this was determined that it will negatively impact the bids when we go out for bid. He gave an overview of our current costs, and you can see there the IPBC pool is 1.9 million. And that is the plan with the 6,000 individual and 12,700 family deductible. The employee share, 25% of that premium is $484,000. Envision is paid $351, almost $352 each year. And that is the third-party vendor that manages the gap between these programs. So the gap is the deductible of the 6,000 per person, 12,700 per family. And the plan that the employees now have is a deductible of $500 for individuals and $1,000 per family. So that's the cost of making that plan more viable to our employees. So the total is almost 2.3 million. One fact to note is that IPBC, and BCBS rate changes effectively July 1st, which has already happened, 2022. So you will see a 7.9% increase. This rate is effective for the next 18 months, so it allows us to have time to look around and change rates. The very next steps are that we will have our next meeting on August 1st, and the meetings always include the group of employees that are assigned to the insurance committee. And this is the time when he will talk about going out to bid and preparing the bids for the consultants and the next steps that we have to do. I anticipate, Wendy, you might agree or disagree, that we will have 2, maybe 3 more meetings before September.
I would agree with that. Only one modification I would make to that, Nancy, based on recent conversations with Brad, he is technically already out to bid and receiving bids back, which he will present to us, certainly anything he's got at that August 1st meeting. So, but yes, I would anticipate a couple more meetings prior to that September 1st timeline. September 1st is our target here because that is the timeline in which, if we were going to make a change with the current provider, we would have to do it and notify them by September 1st. At this point in time, we're not anticipating that simply because for the reasons Nancy already pointed out, our claim history is not the greatest. And so we're not necessarily going to get competitive bids at this point in time with that claim history and the other factors that Nancy noted.
Thanks, Wendy. That concludes my report. Any questions?
So Nancy, on the Envision piece, that FSA program, that was that thing that operates kind of like a health insurance, health savings account. Only you have to use it, as I remember, you have to use it in the current year rather than having it roll over. I think we only had we have very limited enrollment in that, as I remember when we talked about that piece. Did you guys talk about that at all?
My recollection, Jim, was that it was like 9 or 10 employees. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that's right. So that piece is still going to be, is still there because we made that change because we had a conflict that on that resolution that we passed last year.
Absolutely. So that is still in place in this current year, Jim. However, that's one of the things we're going to look at is, do we continue with the FSA program or do we go to more of a traditional
HSA?
Yes, exactly. So that's one of the things, even if we stay with the current health insurance provider, there are options that we can do to change the program itself to offer, some flexibility in the program and or this HSA conversation that we have yet to have.
The question, I thought HSAs were only for high deductible plans, which we have a high deductible, but our employees don't pay the high deductible.
Right. But as far as Blue Cross Blue Shield is concerned, we are in a high deductible plan.
But would the IRS agree with that?
Good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have to
Won't
look
know
at that
either.
because if the employees don't have a high deductible that they have to pay themselves, I'm not sure that they would be eligible under IRS regulations.
This is
But that
something
would have to be
that particular topic is not something that we've addressed yet in the meetings that we've had. So yeah, that's something we need to explore further. So I appreciate you pointing that out, Paula.
And the only reason why I bring that up is because it seemed like the FSA, due to the low enrollment, had limited, usage to our employees. And if we had the availability, if we could integrate the HSA, convert that over, maybe our employees would take advantage of that provision better. I don't know. Because the difference, if you can roll it over, it makes it a lot more useful. So anyway, anybody have any other questions for Nancy? Okay, hearing none. Thanks,
you.
Nancy. Appreciate it.
After our next meeting, we'll have another one.
Good. Okay. Paula, monthlies.
Well, they're in your packet. I didn't prepare a report, so if anybody has any questions, I can attempt to answer them.
Thank you. Yeah, they're not there. I went to pull them up last night and they weren't there.
Well, you want me to go print them and bring them up?
I went
think
to
I had-
resource and all that went back to April.
No, what Becky just said is that she'll throw them in there right now.
Oh, gotcha.
So while Becky's doing that, do you want to, continue down the agenda if Paula can sit for another couple minutes until we get that
Sure.
out there and available for everybody?
right, I'll be.
Oh. Okay, we have no monthly resolutions. We have no old business, so we'll move on to new business and the ARPA recommendations. We have on the first ARPA recommendation, small business program request. And that the recommendation from the ARPA committee to us is that to approve the requests as presented and in a prorated manner. I think let's go ahead and get a motion on the floor and then we'll have a discussion. So moved by Bivens, seconded by Forrester. Discussion. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I believe the one I had brought up, my former paperwork for this. Originally, it was like 13,800 they were going to get.
There's several iterations of this, Doug, and it kept changing with the additional applications that came in. So yeah, so right up until the end, the final number of applications we received, we're now prorating down to the 10,400. But yeah, your memory is accurate. At the time we presented that to the strategic planning meeting of executive committee, we were at 13,000. But since then, we've received a number of more. Now, the deadline to take in applications was the end of June. So this is the final. This is it. So
as a reminder to the committee, what ARPA did was they took the applications, the staff had reviewed them. Some of them were kicked out because they fit into the other category for the nonprofits, for instance. And then there was also some that were thrown out because they didn't qualify because they weren't required to close. Dixon Paint was one of those. Dixon Theater was kicked out because we'd already given them 100,000 donation. One was that Coops Bar and Grill was new owner after the fact, that kind of thing. So that's how, once we got down to the final number, and then that was divided into the $500,000 that we had set aside for this program, and that's how the grant number came to be.
The people who don't get anything, either they are a not-for-profit, they've got it somewhere else or whatever, didn't have to close. Is there communication back to them? They're denied or do they just?
yes, there has been a communication, and we've actually, after following the ARPA committee meeting, Sarah was contacted by a couple of those businesses who wanted to appeal. To be honest, at the ARPA committee meeting, those of you who were on the ARPA committee can attest to the fact that we didn't discuss that. So Sarah and I put our heads together and determined that they should have the right to appeal this. So the process that we laid out was to allow them to provide a written statement or a letter to the board. And what they've been told is if they get that statement to us by Monday, next Monday, that it will be on your table or on board for your consideration when you take the vote next Thursday night. So that's the process that we've laid out. But yes, they've all been notified. Yeah. Yep. So I will reiterate one other thing or clarify one other thing. There were 3 agencies that were determined to be a better fit for the nonprofit. So we removed those from this list and the staff recommendation that was a part of the approval at the ARPA committee was to put them into the community service allocation. The benefit to them is very similar because as Doug pointed out earlier, we're down to 10,400 per small business. And if you remember, the community service cap was 10,000. So we're not harming them by moving them to the other category, but in fact, we're helping the remainder of the small businesses because we've got money left in the community service allocation. So it made sense to pull them out, put them over there and reserve a little bit more money for the true small businesses on this list.
So then, just as a reminder, that may make sure to do the follow-up. We also, the Clipper Kitties that we had given $10,000 to previously, and we had suggested they apply and ask for the additional $5,000 that we didn't. They are in here. You'll see them there in the middle of the page there. So any other further discussion or questions? Okay, we have, John?
Are we going to fund those not-for-profits?
Well, that was part of the recommendation that came out of ARPA. And I guess that's up to the finance committee, whether they want to accept the recommendation that came out of ARPA.
Did we have a formal recommendation of ARPA for those?
Yeah, the recommendation was to accept the staff recommendation, and that included moving those 3 businesses to the community service or nonprofit allocation.
Yeah, but that would have to be, but that isn't part of this.
The motion at ARPA was to include that. Yes, that was one of our recommendations. You can
No,
separate
I
that
get-
if you want, but
But that's not part of the motion, that motion to move them over, but as far as accepting or putting the,
our intent on the staff side was that, yes, that acceptance of them in the small business program, or not, excuse me, in the community service program. However, again, Jim, if you're not comfortable with that, you can separate that out, but that
No.
was our recommendation, and I understood, or my thought was that was the intent of the ARPA committee.
but
again, though,
that would be a separate approval is what I'm saying.
We didn't see it as that, but again, that's your choice. You can do that. I don't see any harm in that.
That was my question, Jim, is are we approving it here?
Because we've already approved the grants that were applied for under the
Community service.
not the nonprofits.
Mhm.
So we'd be adding so what we're saying, I just want to make sure everybody's clear in what we're doing.
Mhm.
So this motion would include moving those nonprofits over to that section and having that as an approval for in the nonprofit area or the
Yes, that was the staff intention and the staff recommendation.
okay.
Again,
I thought that I thought that was going to be a separate
Yeah.
thing online. Okay, I just want to make sure it's committee clear on that, on how that's going to work then.
And the motion.
And that's part, do we need to amend the motion?
If you
in
want to
that
amend it just
regard?
for clarity's sake, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Amended to include the not-for-profit, move those to not.
okay, mover of the motion. Read us on the seconder, Doug. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, is everybody clear? Any further questions? Yeah, Doug.
Do you have any, Wendy, is there any idea, obviously I know it has to be voted on and so forth, when will these checks go out to these businesses?
So the next thing on your agenda is the approval of a small business award agreement. So what's going to happen, and this is the case with all ARPA dollars, is every one of those entities are going to have to sign that award agreement and get it back to us. But we are prepared to be able to make those payments ASAP, pending them returning to us the award agreement. So as soon as possible. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And we have one abstention, Mr. Humphrey. Sorry, I should have asked for abstentions. Knew that was coming. All right, let's go back to, we have the financial, the monthlies up on the resource page. So if you want to go to your resource page. And that should be financials for the June meeting, and Paula.
So looking at the first page, which is the general fund, we are again still high on a couple of the revenue sources. So we're ahead of the game there. And as far as expenses, they appear to be pretty much right on track with the budget for the year. So that's looking good. The next page is your list of capital expenses. So that's the updated list of capital that should be out there or that has been spent so far this year and what budget might have been there. or not been there, depending on the project. Third page are solid waste, public safety, highway health, animal control, road construction. Those are other funds that you guys actually have, that you guys control. I don't see anything particularly, again, everything looks like it's for the most part on track from my perspective. The next couple of pages are the income comparison to the prior years, the various forms of income. So we have gotten our first, at the very top, we have gotten our first distribution of property taxes. But again, sales tax is running high for the year. We are definitely ahead of the game there, and we are way ahead of the game when it comes to income taxes. So we talked about all of this last month also, and the same thing with public safety sales tax. And even if you go to the very last page, that is the information from the landfill fees, and those have been coming in a little stronger than they have in the past few years also. Well, about the same as last year, but more than it had for the previous years before that. So anybody have any questions?
Anybody, any questions with the monthlies? Okay, hearing none. Thanks, Paula. Okay, all right. Just had a communication from Liram, who's online with us, and he is abstained from any and all votes. Okay. Okay, we'll move back to new business, and so we're at number 2, the small business award agreement. And Wendy, do you want to explain what this is?
Yeah, as I referred to earlier, this is the award agreement that all ARPA recipients will sign, something similar to this that simply states the rules upon which we're going to be granting this money and the rules they have to follow in terms of reporting back and et cetera. So each program is a little bit different in terms of the award agreement as based on what we need back from them. Sarah wrote the agreement, and I believe Charlie has reviewed it. Charlie, is that, do you recall? Correct. So Charlie has agreed that, reviewed that. The ARPA committee did approve the award agreement, and we're just looking for a formal motion to approve that agreement here. That is, again, the document we'll send out to every recipient of the small business program.
Mr. Kitson? Mr. Kitson makes the motion to approve the agreement, seconded by Mr. Bivens. Discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion of approving the ARPA award agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have one abstention, Mr. Nimney. Motion approved. All right. New business 3, abandoned properties we request for $100,000. This is a recommendation from the ARPA committee. Let's get a motion. I know, John, you're going to want to talk to it. Let's get a motion on the floor. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Bivens. Discussion. John, do you want to talk about this?
Briefly, this is money that will help pay the legal expenses and cover any demolition that we have to do, at least in the short term. We have incurred legal expenses with Mr. Zollinger. I think Charlie can elaborate on it even more, but this will be the first of we're at our 4th property now, and there's been letters sent to other companies, but along with that goes some costs, and we have to cover those costs. We felt it appropriate to take it out of the ARPA funds.
Okay, and this is recommendation from ARPA. Charlie, do you have any comments?
I don't think there's much to add there. It's really, the legal fees are not the biggest portion of this. The biggest portion is going to be the demolition or any type of remediation that has to be done with these properties. So I think that's primarily where the funds would be used.
Mr. Humphrey?
As I mentioned at the ARPA committee meeting, I support the program. I just don't support the use of funds out of ARPA. We prorated the small business, which was one of our top 5 priorities. And we're taking money from the ARPA fund for this, which I think is an ongoing business expense, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that I see is this first one, I mean, it's in the village corporate limits of Compton. Do they have any funds available that we could cost share with them? I mean, it's not like it's out in the rural county of Lee, but does anybody know the answer to that?
I don't.
I would only add that it's Compton.
Mr. Kitson.
I also support the program. Based on what I'm reading here, this is the funds will tear down this existing house, correct? So will we then take possession of that lot, and be able to resell it and recoup some very small percentage of? Good. That's okay. But I mean, we will own the lot. Right? Correct.
Well, if I remember the discussion from ARPA was that the ideal thing would be able to, once we have full possession of the property, we could try to dispose of the property in an as-is condition. And of course, you're going to take a lot less and it's going to be a lot less marketable, but that is also a possibility, is my understanding, Charlie. And so we wouldn't necessarily have the expenditure of the demolition, but understand that we're.
Well, yeah, normally I went over this the other night, otherwise I'd drove by it with the house for that purpose, to see if something sold.
Alternatively, we can tear down the house and lien the property. I would just advise you again that this is a lot in Compton. Marketability is going to be limited just because of its location. So
Well, I understand it, Wendy, but if we sell it for $1,500 when it's done and we put it back on the tax rolls, it's better than Lee County owning a lot over there that we have to mow. And
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm not looking to make a lot of money, just like I say, a small amount.
Right.
I was just attempting to manage expectations. It's Compton.
Mr. Nicholson.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I haven't had a chance to follow up on it, but I do know that there was one of the Compton trustees saying there's some interest in potentially the city of Compton buying. So I'll try to follow up on that today or tomorrow, actually. Should be by his house.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yep.
Question, if this thing is in arrears for taxes for 3 years, it's been sold twice for taxes, correct?
I believe that to be correct. Yes.
So how do we negotiate? I guess my question is, we purchased a house like this for the Lee County Housing Authority, and someone had bought it for taxes, and then we had to go, because we were a government entity, we have to have appraised to pay that value to buy it back from that person. So do we have to pay something back to the person who's bought the taxes for 2 years? And, you know, the roughly $20,000 tear the house down is one thing. But if we come back and say, well, this lot and this house are worth 20,000 as appraised value, is that, I'm just curious. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious how it works.
I don't think that's the case, but I'm happy to try to get that answer for you. It's a good question. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
My understanding, and I'm with Charlie, I don't know for sure, but my understanding was that a judicial deed, which is how we would take title to the property, has the authority to remove all back taxes. So in other words, they just wipe those away when the judicial deed is granted. So that's what I read in some of the research that I had done. But again, that's not a definitive answer. I would defer that to Charlie, but that's a possibility.
Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And one abstention? Motion carries. No, just one. I vote aye.
Just there.
Yeah, just Laram with an abstention. No, Rick. Yeah, he was a nay. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Can you believe it? We're through. That's everything. 9:29.
Oh, so wait a minute, I'm not
I
done
want
yet.
it duly noted.
couple months ago.
Oh, shoot. Wendy messes me up.
I'll be brief. Just one last reminder that you, as a finance committee for budget purposes, will be meeting at the end of this month. Your next meeting is actually Wednesday, July 27th. That is when we will be going through the budget in an overview. We'll be looking at the capital as an overview, and Paula will be sharing with you some projections on the revenue side for your consideration as we launch into budget hearings. So put that on your schedule. That's all I have, Jim.
Thanks, Wendy. Anybody else have anything good for the cause? What's that?
9 o'clock.
All right. Entertaining motion to adjourn. Moved by Bivens, seconded by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Oh.